to Thrive, well-being with an outcome mindset. This is today's episode as we dive into Roxana and myself, Veronica, here on the Game Changing Work. So stay tuned. We're going to get started right now.
Yes.
What a great
Hello.
This is so timely. I don't know about you and how are you doing this week? When it comes to the topic of well-being, and those of you that are joining us live, hello. Those of you who are joining us on the replay, hopefully you will be able to join in the conversation regardless of when you watch us. I am personally really understanding how this impacts when we talk about the equation of employee engagement, right? Where companies are really trying to, in remote and hybrid cultures, and really shifting in that direction of creating alignment, accountability, and motivating their employees, right? What do we do? Well-being is truly a part of that equation. And do we have some music going on?
We don't have music. It's just construction work.
So yeah, see,
we can pretend that's music.
And how does that impact your well-being, right?
It really does. It really does.
And so let's talk about some of our well-beings as we dive into well-being strategies, because if we want to talk about the human side, I think we probably have stories that we can even share how that actually impacts us in work. So for example, I'm a morning person. I am highly creative in in that mode in the morning. Like, you can get me to do a 6 a.m. meeting any day, but if you ever try to get me to do something late, I am not highly effective. It actually throws my whole entire schedule off. And so I'm actually experiencing that this week. And I'm not saying it as I'm complaining. Yeah, I'm feeling that, but I'm kind of getting through. It's a one-off situation. But what if some of you that are out there today experiencing this, especially in when companies are shifting, that you're having to work all these different kind of schedules? I know it's throwing me off. Like, my time management, I actually went to an appointment that was supposed to be for tomorrow. And I was sitting there and they're going, Veronica, what are you doing here? And I'm like, what do you mean? Because I'm completely messed up. I am completely thrown off. Now, and what are some things that probably you're experiencing when it comes to this whole equation, which does impact our well-being? My sleep schedule's off, right? Like, there's personally, like, all the things that I normally do in my life.
Okay, so I'm gonna try and speak with this beautiful noise in the background, and I hope you can hear me well, because I wanted to start here. And now I'm really curious for all of those watching us right now, what does well-being mean to you? Because definitely with working at home, and I love Esther Perel, who says that we have not been working from home, but we've been working with home during this whole time. And that is why probably a lot of that feels like working.
Yeah. There's an article, one of a fellow agilists that really focuses on remote agility, Mark Kilby. He had I saw a post that he had on LinkedIn. Just wanted to give him props on what I read. And he talked about who takes care of the caretaker, right? When it comes to that well-being. And I was like, well said, because this working, right, kind of aligns with that. Is if you are somebody that might be a single mom, or you're doing all these things with the kids, and you have to still do it, but you also still have to work. And there are a lot of times, even me, I have no children, but still, I'm not by myself. I have to take care of my dog. There's things that my husband might need to do with his work that I have to take on the load. I mean, even just grocery shopping, for crying out loud, right? And the things that we try to do just to maintain our personal well-being, right? I like to go to Pilates, he likes to do his thing. And so we have our part, right? You have your kids. And the point is, it's still working. Like for me, during the weekdays, in truth, it's nonstop from 5 a.m. to 9 p.m. when
Yeah.
I go to bed, literally.
Yeah, exactly. And that is what has been going on for a lot of people during this time. And still it goes on and that's where defining really what well-being means, and especially in this situation right now, and what we want it to mean, because there's a difference between what well-being has meant up until a year ago and what we need to make of it right now and moving forward, especially with remote work being something that people really, really ask for. So I found, you know me, I love to define things before we start talking about them. So this is the actual dictionary definition of well being: the state of being healthy, safe, comfortable, and happy. Now, how much does this have to do with the workplace and with how we need to feel in the workplace, right?
And a lot of us that probably have woke up and realize it has every single thing to do with. And those of you that may have not necessarily came to that point, I'm sure in 2020, you probably are now meeting us over to what I call the far side of
Mhm.
where a lot of us were already there knowing, and I always say, time is precious. It's an asset. You don't get it back once it's gone, folks.
Exactly. Exactly. So I wanted to check, and I'm really into discussing workplace well-being at the moment, because I think when we look at well-being, we just think about wellness and a lot of the physical well-being. So I wanted to show you, when we were talking about
Take off
well-being,
the
what it
caption so we can
used
see
to
all of
mean.
it.
Okay.
There we go.
So, right. So there are these dimensions to what well-being means. And so far, we were focusing mostly on the physical one. And what I mean by that is this, right? You would have all of the exercises, nutrition, and maybe health plans. I was talking to somebody the other day, and they were saying, well, some of the employers think that because they give you a dental plan or a health insurance plan, that's well-being, and that's what they will do, and that's what they think it's all about.
Oh,
And
and
they
then
will stop.
just to expand on that, great they even had that, but then also their
Yeah,
strategies around it were flawed because they
exactly.
were actually penalizing people if they didn't do something. They weren't getting the discounts in their
Yeah,
premiums here in the United States. And so they've had a lot of articles out there saying, what the heck?
yeah,
Right? It's
yeah.
like so your measurements, it is counterintuitive because you're already putting the pressure on the person and saying, if you don't do this, well, you don't get that.
Mhm. Exactly. And it's like, I don't need this, right? I mean, it was all top down, right? And you would have these programs that offer, even for mental well-being, some of the organizations, I mean, all of them would have some vacation included and breaks and some stress prevention or meditation even, or they would be offering even for social well-being. You can think about what we used to have, right? The team building activities, some retreats, maybe office parties, and all of that kind of stuff. When we're talking about financial well-being, we're talking about the salaries, the bonuses, special discounts, and special offers. Exactly what you mentioned. Take advantage of that, because that's what I am offering to you, and you have to take it. And then for
You
the
got
career well-being, we have all of this, like career path promotions and some training events, just sending people to a training event or another to make them feel good.
and the one thing that, like, when we start to look at all this, it's we're rethinking now what actually well-being means to us in organizations. So all of this was great, but it was very compartmentalized on basically per how what your perspective was. And when you talk to people outside of, and you think of, the life coaches and stuff, they were always there. They were always thinking about that. And most of them didn't even work in organizations, or they left them for a reason. Now, when you are looking at organizations today, and even the ones that they would consider themselves modern, we still don't always have something where I posted all the different scenarios about our well-being from our finances, right? We're not all taught in school systems financial intelligence and how to actually pay our debt and balance. And so we could be completely stressed out. You see the financial, but it's more about what they're doing for you, not helping you what you do when you actually get that money. And so when we look at this whole gigantic equation of everything that's going out there, and this is where I'm so passionate about bringing life coaching benefits to organizations, and we're talking about all the different kinds of life coaching specificity. If I said that word right, that was a tongue twister.
Specificity. Yes, you said it. Okay.
And it's like, what if we actually started doing that in a more diligent way, where it's a part of our business strategy? And so talking about strategies and then tying it to an outcome mindset is that there's a huge direct correlation, and you might be getting it too in some of these visuals, is that if you want to try to get alignment, accountability, and motivation and inspire employees to give you everything they have, they got to be whole. They have to be whole as a person. And so you can actually tie it to your business outcomes of how that's actually helping you achieve those targets. And you can measure all of it, because if your engagement goes up,
you have to.
You can measure the intangible and tangibles aspects of it. They're already doing it in HR right now, all these different types of metrics that are out there. But how is that all tying in to somebody being able to be financially secure?
Exactly. And that's why I say, first of all, well-being doesn't need to be a program. It's not about the top-down program. It's about well-being initiatives. That's what it needs to be. And that's why I'm going to bring it up, because yes, you do have the physical, and you need to have all of these dimensions. They need to play an equal part of well-being in your organization. But for that to happen, you need that sense of community. So when you bring the physical, first of all, you need to think about online and in person, because definitely from now on, you will have people working in the office and people working remotely. Where you only have people working remotely, that's going to happen, and that's going to be just focusing on what you can do for them online. But that's where you need to create the sense of community, because they will be isolated, but they need to feel that they're together in that isolation that remote work will mean. That's what we need to focus on right now. And we need to bring, when we talk about mental, we need to talk about cognitive and emotional mental well-being. And that's where life coaching will sit in. That's where even counseling will come in, and there are organizations who've been offering therapy and counseling already for their people. And that was directly related to the outcome that you were mentioning, and that improved the rates of engagement and motivation and accountability and success that they have in the organization.
And you need more than just counseling. Because there's a big difference between counseling and coaching. And those of you that might not be aware, where counseling is really focusing on your problems. That's why a lot of the therapy, the traditional therapy, let me say, because a lot of them have progressed in more modern practices. They use a lot of NLP. They use a lot of different things on there, and the techniques. But counseling is really keeping you in that space of rehashing your problems. So those of you that might not be aware, coaching, on the other hand, is more of a forward approach, where it's really focusing on solution-based coaching and outcomes that is getting you to reframe your problems and shift your thinking so you can actually move forward and achieve your desired outcomes and goals as a person. That's also beneficial too in a teaming perspective. So you and I both work in teaming perspectives more so, especially with me in Agile, and you work with leaders of teams, that it's the collective. But if one individual is stuck, you have to have the opportunity to help the individual, which will help the collective. Or if the collective is stuck, what do you do with that as well? And all of these things could be hitting both personal and professional. There are so many times that I'll go into organizations and we have these things called retrospectives, in Agile, where people don't have that psychological safety and trust to even really get personal. And right then and there is an opportunity for life coaching, because if some people aren't even good with their emotions and can't express themselves, it's going to be very hard in an organizational setting to really develop what I just described, psychological safety and trust, because they're just not there as a person.
Yeah.
And so who's going to help them with that?
Exactly.
If we're only focusing on processes, right, which are huge, or our outputs, and kind of getting back to when you were talking about programs, right? A lot of times the way that we describe them, and I'm very curious, a lot of, what we're doing today, and any of you guys have comments, please, this is just me thinking out loud, is it's more of a thing versus an outcome that you're trying to achieve. And this is why I go back to, how does it align with your business strategies as an outcome? What do you want from it with your people, right? What do you want from it, of how it's going to benefit your company, versus here's a thing that we're going to offer as a benefit, right? It's just a thing.
And the benefit that you don't know that they want in the first place. So one of the first things that you have, that's why I want to call them well-being initiatives, because an initiative is something that can come from the employees, not from the top-down management. So I'm thinking networked groups where you're actually asking your people, what do you need? What are you struggling with? What are your challenges right now? What are some of the wins that you've experienced? What are some of the solutions that you've discovered in this period of time? And then let's see what we can do together so that you get the support that you need as we move forward. So that's where you also get their input and get their feedback on what they might need. And some of them can become champions and can really drive some of these programs for you.
And we call that design thinking today.
Exactly.
And human design thinking hits all of the organizations. It's in HR today. And those of you that are using it's great. And if you're watching us right now, please share how that's benefited you. We always like to know. And this is where you also can attach outcome measurable things at every level to really say, okay, how are we actually learning and adapting, and be very strategic about it. And you can look at it weekly. You can create these quarterly. So instead of making a yearly thing that, whoa, we're going to have this gym, we're going to have this program, this well-being program that's planned annually, we actually can start, to your point, being very strategic and start doing it quarterly. Because here's the thing. Some of the things, and especially, getting back to the remote and hybrid, we have to rethink and be creative of how we approach it. And it doesn't always necessarily have to be some of these big, huge efforts out there that require this annual planning, putting it together, all this annual budgeting. We teach a lot of thinking in Agile, where how we do our funding structure. What if our funding structure isn't tied the same way, and we start being more agile about it, and we start thinking and adapting, doing hypotheses driven type of initiatives, where here's what we learn, here's what we think, but we're not really sure if that's going to solve the problem. And so we do some experiments to see how that's going to shift. There's so many things that we can do to start thinking about our strategy around well-being. Take lean agile practices, start implementing things like OKRs, and it all ties to your business strategy. So it's a win-win at the end of the day. Win-win for you as a business, win-win for you on a personal level. Because if your employees are at 100% or close to it, you're always going to get the best out of them.
Exactly. And we're talking a lot about
you're
that.
not getting the best out of me right now. And that's the
No.
truth, because I'm not optimum. I'm not.
Yeah. So that is where we need to, I think, flexibility when we talk about it. And we've been talking about it as well, as in the future of work and what's required. And that's one of the top 5 skills that we're looking at when it comes to what we need in the workplace right now, flexibility. So, and flexibility around the strategy, because right now we're figuring things out. We don't come with clear recipes that we know are going to work. We need to be able to be flexible around what solutions are going to be there for just a while and then they're going to be obsolete because we don't need them anymore. And what solutions, when we talk about well-being and long-term strategy, what will be in place for longer term? But that is gonna stay in place because I'm actually gonna have the feedback and the support from the people who need that solution, who need that benefit, and then they're gonna use it. And if people are gonna use it, then I'm gonna keep it. If people don't use it, then I'm gonna ditch it. So we need to understand how we can be flexible around the strategy so we get to the outcome, not stay rigid in, oh, this is something that we have to use because we just have to, but we have no idea why we're using it in the first place.
Why? What stops
and who
from approaching it like with a product mindset?
Exactly.
And we treat this the same way we do, like if you had an e-commerce site, right? Like in marketing, you have to understand, learn that what is actually needed at the moment, but you're always pivoting and adapting. And here's the truth. We're now in an age of high unpredictability. And one of the things I think that we are still thinking traditionally and assuming that we need to maintain our traditional ways. And I'm basically going to call bullshit on it, because right now, yeah, I'm calling bullshit, because we know whatever we probably had out there in 2020 wasn't working. And guess what? It's still there. It's still going to exist. And what it did, it actually pushed it up to the surface, because I can tell you right now, most people were having these problems. It just became 10 times, 100 times more obvious to all of you folks. They were just good at freaking hiding it. And so now if we are really trying to build a culture, and we talk about well-being, we talk about having choice, right? We have to be smart about it and start shifting our approaches. And one way is, if we are doing all these great things in software development and trying to be, adaptive, product discovery, doing all these great things that we're building to serve our customers, well, what about the internal customers called employees? Why are we not doing the same approach?
Well, because you talked about choices, right? Let's look at what people's choices are so far. What we know that people want, talking about asking your employees, your internal client, right? There's this WeWork study on work from home impact, right? So 90% of people said they want to return to the office at least 1 day per week. And 67% of people want a hybrid working model or a short commute to work. How about that? And we're just getting started. I mean, these are just some stats that I have. There's loads of other stats out there.
And how is that changing? Because it's all subjective. What does it mean by 1 day a week? Because guess what? I bet you it's not the same day with everyone. And that might have been, yeah, I'm willing to go to 1 day a week. But if you really gave me a choice, I'm going to say not at all. Because if I can find a way not to do it, I'm not going to go. Some people, and this is where I'm big about choice and really understanding how people are effective in the way that they work, where some people like to get out, they like to go to the office, they feel themselves more effective. Other people, like myself, I don't find any different. Like, I'd rather just be home. I've learned how to adapt, time manage. When time manage, and obviously this week is a different case because I wasn't managing it the way I normally do. But it's possible. Now let's get into the subject of remote and hybrid and some of these well-being things. And this is kind of when we talk about the remote first, the office occasional, office first, remote reliable. This is based on one of the articles that you have. I also have, another Forbes article that actually came out pre 2020. And it's just funny how all of this is now just gone like, whoo, right? In surface.
Exactly.
Now, remote first, a lot of companies, and they gave an example of Box. And I loved the announcement, and it's just a quick blurb that I read. I was skimming, and I saw it on LinkedIn about we're deciding to go remote first, but we know we're not really sure how we're going to do it, but we know we need to do it. And I just love that, because that means they're taking a leap. They know it's the right thing, and they believe and they trust that they're going to get through it.
Yeah, that means they also ask their people what they want. So that's where I'm thinking we really need to be flexible enough to understand that now we need to ask people, because there will be people like you who want to work remotely and who thrive working remotely. There will be people who will say, I cannot, remote work is not for me, I need to go to the office. And you need to know, as an employer, you need to know how many people and who needs what, so that you can cater to those needs and actually help them thrive rather than just survive, because we can't stay in survival mode for too long.
Yeah.
So when it comes to all of these choices, you have to know, if you're going to go remote as a company, as an organization, make it clear to them and help them adapt to that. So for remote first, it's just we're aiming to get remote, but we're also going to keep an office for people who want to go to the office, but that means that most of the employees will work remotely. For office occasional, I know about organizations who are gonna go for maybe 3 days or 4 days in the office, 1 day remotely, or 2 days in the office, 3 days remotely, and stuff like that. And for office first, remote allowed, it's gonna be definitely, we're all gonna be mainly in the office, and then when you need to work remotely, just know that you can.
Yeah,
so
I would
there's
never
going to
sign
be,
up for number 3.
I know,
If
but
I'm
there
a
will
highly
be,
choice person, and
exactly.
here's something. I need to buy like a stuffed animal elephant, because I'm about to drop the elephant right now and state the obvious. When we look at these 3 things and you wonder who made that decision and why, is it the leaders with their inability, right? It's their personal preference, or they're not comfortable with change themselves. And or is it, did we actually go out there, right? Do some of that design thinking and find out what our internal customer, the employee, really truly want, and understand what that really looks like so they can address that. And I know there's a combination of those things going on. And I want to point out, I was listening to a really interesting podcast. It had nothing to do exactly with this particular scenario, but it got me thinking just in general about what happened in 2020, where most people, if we look at the different patterns when it comes to change, you have people what we call a sameness pattern that really don't change, probably maybe every 10 years. And then you have the other pattern, which is the middle of the road. It's about 5 to 7. And then you get probably people like yourself and I, which we are radical change people and disruptors, that we change frequently. We're always looking for the new and the unique, right? That's where you see a lot of the entrepreneurs, the innovators. They sit in this space, right? They're all about disruption. What ended up happening in 2020 is that we put everyone in the space that you and I live in. And guess what? They surprised us. So here's the elephant. Are you the leader that is assuming and making assumptions that your people can't change, and you're playing it safe, when they approved that it's completely possible to do these things? And what are you worried about? Are you worried about alignment and accountability, that because you can't see them, they're not productive, they're not going to be motivated? I think they prove that, right? And a lot of leaders have actually acknowledged that.
Yeah.
And so where are we, everyone? Right? And I'm very curious, some of you, where your thoughts are on this. And then another thing, and this is another thing at the heels, and you have them in your household, the Gen Zs.
Mhm.
What one of these do you think they're probably going to pick?
Well, I think for this one, it's tricky though, because there will be, like, I've talked to people who said, I miss hugging everyone in the office, or I miss talking to people, I miss having that morning coffee chat with people. And here's where we actually need to pay attention, because there will be different working styles, just the way we have different learning styles, different personalities. It's the same way we have different working styles, and now we're just understanding what we need to look at when it comes to that, and how we can cater to the needs of the different learning styles. But the what I want to point out here, which is essential, is that no matter which model you're choosing, first of all, be flexible enough to understand when you need to change it and what you need to change it into, and make sure that your people understand as well, because clearly you will need guidelines, you will need policies, you will need to make it crystal clear for everybody, where are we going, what's our model of working, how, what's acceptable, what's not acceptable. Because here's the risk is, we say we're going to be, let's say, I'm not going to go with remote first, even although we say we go remote first, and the leaders of the organization choose to go to the office. Guess what happens in 3 months, 6 months, a year time? Everybody
Most
will
people will start
slowly be
doing the
getting
office.
back.
And
Exactly.
one of the articles that we
Exactly.
had is, what type of culture and environment does that create if those are the
Yes.
ones that get the exposure, get promoted, and you feel like you're
Exactly.
being left out? These are
Yes.
a lot of things where, how do you change the way that you assess a situation? And this is why I'm so passionate about, when I talk about outcome mindset agility, is really saying, okay, how do we put the foundation in that allows us to remove all of those concerns, because they are valid,
Yeah.
and we're running a business, and I do want to acknowledge that. But there are different ways to approach it now than what we've done before, and there are a lot of things out there that are providing that ability for you. And it's not something that's going to take you years. You actually can accelerate that process of getting there by putting the right things, putting the very laser focus around them, and you wouldn't believe how quickly you can actually do it. You can even start this year, in truth.
Yeah, exactly. So that's where we really need to think about what are the best ways in which we can get the information from our internal customer, from our people, understand what their needs are, and make decisions based on the real needs of our people, and be able to be flexible enough and adapt to whatever we need to adapt to. Because it's not, again, we're just putting the pieces of the puzzle in place, it's not going to be happening all overnight. And making sure that everybody feels included, because that is the whole point of bringing the well-being discussion at work, is to help people feel included and feel that they matter, and feel
Yeah.
like they can make their best contribution. And because we want to have them bringing their best self to work, what does that even mean if we're not creating that environment where they have all of the five well-being dimensions catered for, like all the mental, the physical, the social,
And
the
it's so
career, and the
complex.
financial.
It's so complex because even when you
Yes.
said, I miss hugs, my brain went somewhere else. I'm like, okay, so what does that mean? Does it mean you really want to go to work, or you just want to go in and socialize, and you can do that in an hour, get your fix, and go home? So it's there's a lot more to unpack,
Yeah.
and spending the time to understand what those things mean. Because when I hear that, that might be so different. Like, I talk a lot, I'm social, but I can tell you right now, I could probably go in for 1 hour and get my fix, and I'll be done.
Yeah, exactly. Now, there are a lot of parents, especially with small kids, that will say, I can't wait to go back to the office, because for them, going back to the office means
It's a
they can
break.
actually focus. It's a break. They can work. They can actually do the work. I was talking to parents who were working in shifts from home. When the
Yeah.
wife was working, the husband was caring for the kids, and the other way around, because there was no other way that they could actually feel that they were doing proper work. So it's like, how do we support of these people in our organization with whatever it is that they need, so that they are productive and that they do the work, and that the kind of work that we need from them, that gets us all to success, to feeling successful and getting the results that we need. This I think is essential when we talk about why well-being is important for the workplace.
And the interesting part is when you start getting creative of all the things that we're talking about in the strategies, right? We're you and I are big what if people, right? Looking at the different
Yeah.
possibilities. The money that you spend in commercial real estate, probably some of the things that you can offer of what we're talking about and the variety of different options could be
Oh yeah.
dispersed into providing that, but still provide a space that people can go to. They're starting to, I mean, if we think about commercial real estate here in the US, like it's like, woo, probably
Hmm.
not a good investment right now. But if you're a person that wants to buy and then sit on to see what you can do later, right? The buyers, they're
Yeah.
like eating it up like candy. But
Yeah.
but the thing is, you can start reallocating and shifting because it's very expensive to maintain that office space.
Hmm.
Do you really need that big, gigantic office space anymore, right? And a lot of companies are thinking about that. But what are you doing with the money?
Yeah.
Where's it going?
Exactly. You can shift. You can think. That's where the flexibility in thinking will need to come in, because we need to think about even some of the benefits that we were offering. What can we do, and who are we going to offer that benefit for in person use or for online use, or and do we need to? Do they still need that kind of benefit, and if they don't, then what are we going to replace it with? What is it that they need that we can replace that benefit with? So there's a lot of discussions that we can start having, but the essential point here is start having those conversations.
And again, when we start to have the conversation, you get feedback, just like what we do in a product mindset, we should be aligning to an outcome first.
Yeah.
Because if you have a strategic outcome, and even when we're doing product discovery and really going out there and understanding the market, we still know our strategic objectives. And then you're kind of saying, okay, well, how can we as a business meet these strategic objectives? It's no different when we're talking about well-being. And in some of it, if we actually knew and aligned on that, we would allow the creativity to happen. Because here's one thing that, and I'm just going to kind of go off just a little bit, where when you are having a lot of different time zones in your companies, a lot of you are global. Most of the time, the predominant headquarter location is where everything is centered around, and the meetings, and everyone else has to adjust and acclimate. But it's like, what if you start really thinking about your outcome of what you have and you start aligning people appropriately? And so when I talked about like more of like the evening people versus the morning people, that could you create something, right? And again, this is how you'll start to think about, if you want this strategic outcome, then you think about how the ways that you can get there. And things might look a little different than how you're working today, because the people that are probably closer to the work probably have an idea, but they don't have the ability to say, okay, have we ever really thought about shifting our workforce where we have the people that love to work at night, let them work at night. We don't have this 9 to 5 schedule anymore,
Yeah.
but then we have the morning people. And then we know, based on about how they work, they're so creative in the morning, and you get the people that are highly creative and productive in the evening. It's a win-win. But most companies, and there's some that are working this way, I'm not saying it's not happening, um, that what you actually get, because a lot of times if you continue staying in your normal 9 to 5 schedule, and only one group of people is changing, you're still not getting full effectiveness. You're not fully getting the employee engagement or the productivity and alignment that you'd so desire at the strategic level.
Yeah, because they will not feel included because you're not creating even a schedule, right? You're not creating a schedule that helps them feel included. That's where, because we're all thinking in terms of what we need, what we like, what's been happening before, instead of thinking, okay, what else is possible out there? What else is needed out there? Something that I might not think about because it's not my situation, but somebody else who goes through something completely different might have different needs. So that's what I'm saying, like whatever you're doing, make sure that they feel included. And I found this quote that I loved, and I don't know who said it, but I think it's so powerful. Leaders amplify the uniqueness of others. And I think this is what needs to happen more of, because we're looking at, and we've been okay, we're looking at how we're different and how that's bad, and now we need to think about different as unique and what that actually brings to the table once I help that particular person really bring that uniqueness in the workplace and thrive with that and really contribute. That's what
Oh,
needs to happen.
and that is the secret sauce. If you can get
Absolutely.
that out of every employee that you have, and you know what, I'm going to backtrack there because there's a lot of predominant of freelancers, right? I freelance,
Mhm.
that they are not necessarily employees. So I actually want to retract that statement. The people that are actually there to help you succeed as a business, regardless of how they're being paid, is still the same.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be any different. And you probably ask, like, why are we talking about some of these things? What does that have to do with well-being? Everything,
Exactly.
because it's one human.
Yep.
One human in this equation multiplied by many, right? We're a system of humans and we're so complex and it's complicated. And this is why, I love, me being an agilist, and you live in the land of complexity, and the things that we do is all about working in that space. This is no different. And so we have to start bringing some of these practices into how we approach well-being as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. I agree with that. And that I think this is why we're so passionate about the whole topic of well-being, because we see, and you and I know what it can do for the people, for the teams, and for the organization as a whole when you align with outcomes and what
You know,
you want
and
to get.
we need to get, I don't have, if any of you guys have this statistic, share with us, save us some time. I'm curious of the increase of freelancers and entrepreneurs that has happened since 2020. I have an inkling that it has increased because people left corporate world.
And also, not just because they left the corporate world, either because they were laid off or because they
But they're
chose to
not
leave the
coming back,
corporate
is my
world.
point.
Also, what happened, and I was looking at some stats for Canada, for example, a lot of people started side hustles
Yep.
because of the need for extra financial income. That's something that also happened during the past year. So not necessarily that they left the job, but they understood that, because probably, and a lot of them had partners who were laid off, so they were thinking, I can have a different kind of income stream, and I need to have it because I understand that I cannot rely on one thing and one thing only, which can, disappear overnight.
And I'm going to be honest. If everyone learned financial intelligence and understood even passive income and all these different things, they would actually know that. You would
Yeah.
never. Most of the successful people, and you wonder why
Yeah.
they are there, is because they know that, and they plan for that. Now, kind of getting back to what I was saying is, I am very curious about. We probably should get that statistic, because what happened is these side hustles turned it into. They realized they actually could
Yeah.
live off of it, and they left.
Yeah.
And I look on LinkedIn, you see it on Facebook, all these people that have left. I mean, the increase of life coaches has gone through the roof. And there's a reason why, is because they're like, hey, I can do this. I don't have to go work for someone. And so we're fooling ourselves, even with Gen Z. I mean, I know with my niece and the people at her age, she's probably at the tail end of that Gen Z. She's in that age group, right? The 20, 23, 24. They don't want to work for the man. They
Yeah.
actually want choice. They're like, why would I want to do that? Why
Yeah.
would I want to do that when it's capped? And the way the rules and the way that they have it, when I have life of abundance and I'd rather make as much money I can if I would choose to by the work that I put in. And so
Yeah.
that mentality, and I'm not trying to be negative. I'm trying to be real about where well-being has everything to do with that, because they're thinking of their well-being is my point, even though we don't necessarily always classify that as well-being, but they do.
Yeah, they do. And if you're a smart organization, you're going to be thinking 30 years from now, this is who you're going to work with. And this is who you're going to
They
want
want purpose.
to work with you, because I think we're shifting from working for a company to working with different companies. And I
Yeah.
think with Gen Zs, we're going to go what we're going to see, entrepreneurial spirit, but mostly a lot of freelancing going on and a lot of contracting going on with them, because you're not going to catch them working for just one person, one
Well,
company,
right
or
after
9 to 5.
my
Exactly. That's my feeling. And I have two Gen Zs at home. So
I
they're
wonder.
not yet there, but I can see where they're going.
I wonder.
I can see their
We probably have
preferences.
to talk to the GC Index to see if they have any data with that age group. If there is an increasing number of game changers, like an inclination of 5 and
Yeah.
above, right?
Mhm.
Of game changers in that
Yeah.
generation, because everything that we're saying, it it basically sounds like they have some game changer in them.
In any case, they do seem that they have some higher game changer
Right. I'm not
scores
saying
in
that's the
them, and
predominant,
also
but it's there.
no, but it's there. And also, they grew up with different values and they have a very clear sense of purpose that is higher than, okay, I'm going to work for you and I'm going to get my money for my work. It's
Yeah,
higher than
and
that.
and
The
and
sense of purpose is high with them.
And speaking of the GC index, and just so some of you aren't aware, it's not a psychometric, has nothing to do with personality or behavior, actually aligns with that value system that we're referring to.
Mhm.
And this is why I'm asking that question, because if you have a certain generation that has a particular value system in there, that's why I'm saying, are we going to get more high inclinations of game changers? What does that mean for you, corporate America or corporate world? Is that they are going to be people that want choice. They see the possibilities. These are the people that are going to challenge the status quo, which means the ones, they are the disruptors, right? And or they're going to be wanting some of that difference, right? Their change rate is going to be a smaller time frame than the other generations that might have the 10-year to the 5 to 7 year, and they're going to go into the workforce, and they are going to be who they are, but they're
Mhm.
also going to influence the ones that are on the edge and they wish they were that they're going to feel inspired and motivated to go, oh, if they can do that, maybe I can. Maybe choice is possible for me. And so I'm going to be very amazed how probably in the next 5 years, because they're young now, right? They're the newbies. They're the fresh blood that's coming into work right now. And once they're in there for about 5 years, you're really going to see that what I call them penetrating a lot of that corporate world. So it's going to be very interesting on that. Now, as we are closing up, which I thought this was a great topic. What do you think?
Oh,
Good
I
one?
love it. I'm doing a lot of workshops on this topic. I'm super passionate about it. So absolutely, I could talk about it all day.
And
So
talk about super passionate, as Roxana and I are. It's been over 8 months since we started the Game Changing Work Show, and we finally got our first baby one pager web page, gamechangingwork.com. Oh, look at us there.
look at it. It's
And
so beautiful.
and so we're going to keep working on it. We're actually going to probably get to more than one page, but hey, we're all about MVP. Get it up there. And
Yeah.
what we have on this page is we're going to have a special offer for all of you that are watching the show to register to get your free GC Index Profile Impact Discovery session with either myself or Roxana. And so this is a great way to get insight about your impact energy and how you best can contribute and make a game-changing impact. Now, the power, I believe, and I know you believe, is in the teaming when it comes together as a collective. Yeah. But what we're offering is the individuals to experience themselves and then start to go, what if, or why, or how, does this work with more than one person?
Exactly.
So go to our website, gamechangingwork.com. You can fill out the form that we have on there. There's a great video that explains briefly about the GC Index and the team impact. I'm so excited that we got that there. There's more things to come as we start to polish and really think about what game-changing work is starting to become after 8 months. And Roxanne and I have been talking where we're really focusing on, when we talk about the future of work, is really these remote and hybrid cultures. And what does that look like to support them? So this is one thing where we offer, her and I, when it comes to our services. So I work a lot with business agility, agile, outcome mindset, doing anything from like the OKRs or anything that you're going to set up to be able to measure and be scalable across, so you can start shifting to an outcome mindset culture. While you work a lot with the leadership development and helping CEOs, small business, and middle management become the leaders that are going to help take us there.
Yeah, and that's a lot of the conversations right now with them are around how are we going to make our teams feel more productive and motivated and engaged. And there's a lot of concern from small business CEOs and also from middle management, the way I see it, in driving change and being a different kind of boss, a different kind of boss that people want to work with rather than run from. And I think this is the shift that we need to make sure that we're moving towards, because that's the reality here.
It can be scary. It
definitely
can be confusing, but at the end of the day, it all aligns. If I'm trying to run a business, it's always taking in consideration, what are your goals as a company, and then say, how do we create highly inspired and motivated people within our organization, regardless of how they work with us. And I say that I gotta stop saying employee, because I feel like that alienates the other group of people. What would be a good word? Any of you guys have a good word out there to use? Because I'm starting, how we always say labeling the words. Employee means that you're a full-time employee, and that's not the case. And so that alienates a whole other workforce out there. And so maybe I should just say workforce. What do you guys think about that one? Workforce?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know the right word. Help me, everyone. Help me.
Yeah, it's human force. Human workforce.
I don't know. I know human workforce seems a little bit like, I feel a little
long.
Yeah, and it's just,
at the end of the day,
it doesn't ring.
At the end of the day, you're working with people. No matter what, it's going to be people. So whenever I talk to them, I just say, what are you doing for your people? And how are you working with your people? Because that's who we work with.
It's the creative marketing of trying to find that right word that resonates.
Exactly.
And feel it, right? You can imagine when you say it.
Yeah.
Now, what's our topic for next week?
So next week, we're actually building on this one, 12 modern workplace trends for 2021 and beyond, which is definitely building on the topic that we just discussed today.
Yeah, and in truth, and being transparent for all of you that are have been following us over the last 8 months, or you just joined us, is that we're really trying to talk about topics related to the companies that are trying to shift in this remote and hybrid type of culture, or you're actually the people in it that are interested on, what do I do, because we're all about choice. And what does that start to look like for the future
Yeah.
of work? And so you're going to be either the person being impacted by it, or you're going to be the people that are helping shift a company. So it's going to be those type of audiences, just to be honest. And I don't know why did I say it that way? Of where game changing work is going. And so a lot of our topics are going to be centered around that. Going forward. And I'm really excited about that. I don't know about you, but when you and I were talking and we're starting to have our strategic calls, we said, okay, what now? Right? What are we going to do now? We started this, but what are we becoming? We're like in our teenage years now. We're growing up, and what do we want it to be? And so that's where we landed on right now.
I think a lot of us are doing this. A lot of us are doing this right now. We're growing up again. I mean, for sure, this is a situation that we haven't been in. So why not accept we don't know everything? Let's just think about what is it that we can do in this situation right now. So,
and
how can we change the game at work?
You learn, you grow, you adapt, right? And change. And right now, after 8 months, this is where we're going. Now,
also, I want to mention
what might happen in a year.
I want to mention, if you want to check out the previous episodes of our show, you can go on our YouTube channel, Game Changing Work YouTube channel. I will also put the link in the comments and in the description so that you can get all of the episodes and a lot of the topics that we've discussed so far. If you're really into this, if you're passionate about changing the game at work with us as well. So click on the subscribe button and you'll also get the notifications.
Awesome. So we got to wrap up. It is time to say goodbye for this week, but we hope that you enjoyed either with us live or watching the replay. And always know, we are all about choice and changing the game for the future. It's about you. And come along with us.
Yeah. All right. Take care.
Bye.
See you soon.